everyone. My name is Lauren Muckler. Welcome to our first episode of WedTalks here at Westwind Hills. I am a luxury venue owner here in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm here today with Maureen Renee of Maureen Renee Events.
Hello.
And we're so excited to just kind of connect people with some knowledge and trends of different things kind of going on in the wedding industry.
Yes. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Maureen. I'm the owner of Maureen Renee Events, which is a luxury wedding planning and event design firm located here in St. Louis, Missouri. But I always joke I will go anywhere my clients are willing to take me. So we travel both locally and internationally. So I've been in business now. This will be my 5th year of owning my own business, but I've been in the industry now for just over 11. So I know. It's like I feel old.
Yeah, we've known each other probably... When was that wedding in Cancun that we did together?
Oh my gosh, 20
at least 7 or 8 years.
20, I was going to say like 2015, 2016. So
yeah.
I know I should remember off the top of my head, but that was a really fun client.
Yeah.
And it was a good excuse to go to Mexico. So
well, so we love having Maureen at the venue. She's actually designed here a couple times already. So we thought it'd be a great first guest to really dive into some details. Yeah, we're excited. So we're just going to go straight for it.
Yes.
So I got some questions from Instagram ahead of time. So I have a few things prepared that I'll just kind of ask you. And, you know, we want your honesty.
Okay.
So don't hold back.
Me. I am an honest gal. I am transparent. So I will tell it like it is, spill the tea.
Amazing. So one common question that's asked is, when do I need a wedding planner or full wedding design consultant versus just using the venue's manager the day of the wedding, and kind of what are the differences?
That's a great question. We get asked that a lot. I get asked that in sales meetings. Often it's, well, I'm not sure if I really need a full wedding planner because I know my venue has a venue manager. So let's unpack that part first. A venue manager is very different than what I do or any other wedding planner would do. So there's kind of 3 buckets that they fall into. One is venue manager. So that is going to be someone who is hired by the venue, works for the venue exclusively, and they are only in charge of the parts of your day that have to do with the venue. Now here at Westwind Hills, you all have outside caterers that come in. So sometimes that's, they're overseeing that arrival, making sure that food is covered. But really the catering staff is the one, and the heads of the catering staff would be the ones even, kind of in charge of that aspect of the day. But then most venues, say you're at a hotel, for example, like that venue manager is truly in charge of just making sure the hotel staff is there. The hotel is, covering the ballroom staff and all of those things. They're not worried about, especially if your ceremony's off site, they are not worried about, whether you get down the aisle at the right time, whether your invitations got in the mail. They don't care about any of that, really. I mean, they care. I shouldn't say they don't care, but they are not worried about that on the day of.
They're worrying about the task that pertains specifically to the venue.
Right. They want to make sure the lights are turned on, the AC is at the right temperature, the bridal suite is open, there's, refreshments in, wherever you're getting ready that
Guests
morning.
know where they're coming in,
Guests
where the
know
restrooms
where they're coming.
are.
Exactly. So they're really not as, in charge of things like, oh, well, let me make sure your dress is bustled. They're not going to be the person getting on their hands and knees, making sure that the loops and ties are, done. They're not going to be doing that. Whereas a wedding planner is definitely somebody that would fall under the rest of those tasks, right? They kind of become not only your therapist through, I think, a lot of what you're doing for that, sometimes up to 14, 16 months of the planning process, but they're also obviously here, I joke like the movie with J-Lo, like they're the ones with the, earpiece, and they're here on site, making sure that not only the venue, sticks to what they promised that they were going to do, but also all the other vendors on your team. So, a wedding day can have somewhat, especially with the caliber of weddings that I do, there can be 15 to 20 vendors that can be on that vendor sheet, right? Call it sheet for the day. So knowing that you have somebody that's overseeing all of that is really important. And then of course there's the event design side of it. So my company and, I do both. So that means that not only will I do the planning side, but also will do the event design side. But some people are just event designers, right? So that can sometimes even be a consulting service that comes in and you can have a planner separate. So there's kind of 3 buckets that falls into. But, I definitely think there's a huge difference between what a venue manager does and what a an actual full service, a wedding planner would do versus what and I'm sure you agree. Like, obviously owning a venue, it's a very different mentality that you have about weddings versus even when you've, photographed weddings, you have a different set of tasks for the day. So, I think that's the biggest difference.
I think, and I probably know your answer to this,
is
that everyone should have a wedding planner or someone there on their day.
Of course.
But when do you think someone really would not need a wedding planner? Is there any situation?
That's a good question. I would say if you are truly going to the courthouse, you are doing a nice dinner afterward for 15 people, your closest, nearest and dearest, and you just want to rent out like a private room in the back of a restaurant. And sometimes restaurants will even say, we can bring some florals and we'll do like a nice little centerpiece for you. And, they have the tables and chairs and you're just picking a la carte from a menu. Then no, I don't think you need a planner. I really think at that point it's an elevated dinner party. But I would argue as soon as you get to that next step, even if you went to the courthouse, but then you were like, well, I want a really beautiful dinner party with, drapery in the room, and I don't like their chairs, and I want to bring in different florals, or I want some sort of, specialty food or drink interactions. Then you're looking at, okay, well, who's doing all of that on that night? Like, if you're getting married, you really don't want to be the one that's like schlepping around stuff to get to the restaurant, right? So, and I think ultimately it just comes down to, if it's not you doing it, who are you asking to do it, right? So you've seen it, I'm sure, here at the venue when people don't have wedding planners. Who's packing up everything?
Mom and dad. And it's so sad.
It's mom and dad. It's like Aunt Sally, who's like got the short end, and she's got to walk around and like pick up the table numbers and pick, it ends up turning into, just like a cattle call of people helping pick things up at the end of the night. And we all know people, are drinking. They want to have fun. They've been dancing. They don't want to, as much as they'll tell you we want to help. No one really wants to help you. No. I'm sorry. At the end of the night, no one wants to help you. That's the real tea. They don't want to help you. They want to come to the party. I don't care if it's your best friend, your bridesmaid. They don't want to help you.
They want to enjoy the day.
And they're in the group text separate from you saying, oh my God, I can't believe she's asking me to clean up the floral arrangements tonight. Like, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm just telling you that, like, have somebody at the bare minimum. I am a proponent of, you should always have a event manager there that is for your wedding or special event, that's separate from the venue, separate from, even if it's the month out, you need somebody at the bare minimum. And again, this is, kind of controversial, but day of planners don't exist. And if they do, they're not doing their job well, because it's impossible to show up on the day of with no context for what the day is and just walk in and be like, well, I'm here. Okay, well, who's showing up? I would have no idea.
Right. And confirming all the vendors ahead of time. Okay, so if you're not involved on the front end, then how are you going to make sure everybody's going to be there? It's just...
Right. So it's at the bare minimum. I tell my clients, like, if they don't need that full support, throughout the whole process, that's okay. That can be a right answer, right? Where it's like, well, I don't need a planner during this beginning time because my work is light at this time of year. Even if you're a teacher and you're like, well, I have the summer off, so I want to do some of that fun planning stuff. Makes total sense. But I do let my clients know I plan weddings as a full-time job. So it is a full-time job to take over a, luxury wedding as just a normal person who doesn't do this every day, right? It becomes a lot. And we can do pretty much everything for our clients, sans like a few little things. And ultimately, like, I let them know just those little things I can't do for you take up time. Like, I can't ask your bridesmaids for you to be in the wedding party. I can like help you make the gifts. I can help you like design the boxes and all that. But like, I can't make your guest list for you. I can like get it and edit it and make sure it's all, proper etiquette and everyone's addressed correctly, but I can't make that up. I can't talk to your parents and say, who do you want on this guest list? So just that task alone takes time out of your day. And our clients are very busy. They just are, they have a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And I think clients don't often understand that they're paying for your services, which is a simple text at 5 o'clock at night, a panic text about something.
Right.
The conversations prior to the wedding or what they're paying for. The expert.
Right. They're paying for expert consulting advice from the moment that I'm onboarded on the project, right? So I don't charge per email. I don't charge per text, per phone call. I don't charge like that. I'm not like a lawyer where I charge hourly, because if I did, it would be astronomical. I mean, a luxury wedding, if say they come on with a traditional, planning period of 12 to 14 months, I would spend upwards of 500 hours on just that project, right? Let alone the day of actual execution, like boots on the ground, so to speak,
Yes.
of like actually seeing the wedding through. So knowing that, I mean, that's what you're paying for, are those hours on the front end, just the ability to say, am I doing this right? Okay, what's my next 5 steps? What's my next to-do list? Instead of, getting on the knot and being overwhelmed by, the 100 million things they'll tell you need to do. It's like, I like to let my clients know, these are the 5 things you need to do this month, right? And then keeping them on track that way.
So basically, if you can swing it, hire a planner.
Right. No, and really, and honestly, I understand that it is a privilege to have a planner, and it's a luxury to have one, but I also believe that it's a luxury to even get married in the way that many people do these days, like what we see on Instagram. You don't have to do any of it. I mean, you really don't. Like, let's be for real. You literally, all you need is the marriage license and going to the courthouse and signing the papers. So at any point, anyone spending any amount of money on a celebration is a luxury. So you're already doing that. Now, there's some technical terms around like, what is a luxury wedding?
Yeah,
and
so
how,
that's thrown around all the time. And since we consider ourselves a luxury wedding venue, can you kind of define, let's call it 3 categories of weddings.
Right. So I would say the first category would be considered lovely weddings, which is really nice weddings that fall into, the category of I have maybe 150 to 200 people attending that wedding, and my investment in that wedding would fall somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000. So I would say, and again, we base kind of these categories on the spend per person overall. So that's, your all-in investment in the weekend divided by the number of people in that room, correct? So it doesn't, it's not just, oh, well, their charger costs this much and their glass. You're also paying for like the band, and they're entertaining all 200 guests. So we're taking that cost of that band divided by 200. It's all in, right? Paper goods, all of it. So it's really kind of an all-in cost minus, of course, attire and, things like,
right.
We don't really track that. It doesn't matter whether you spend like $10 on a dress or $10 million.
Stuff pertaining to the guest on the wedding.
Correct.
Day.
So anything that's, environmental in our space that we're, going to be designing, lighting, all of that stuff, down to food, beverage, and everything in between. So lovely, I would say, falls usually somewhere under that, $1,000, like under $1,000 per guest, right? So it kind of puts you in that range, where you still have a really lovely wedding. You have 200 people, but you're spending $350 to $650 per person. And, they're gray areas, right? Because it depends on what you're putting that investment in. And then I would say this second tier would be luxury. And that's really going to be what we see a lot of what girls see on Pinterest and what they see on Instagram.
Influencers'
weddings. And, those are going to fall somewhere in the above $1,000 per guest. And that can range from $1,000 a guest to, I'd say, up to about $2,000 a guest, anything kind of in between. So that would, to kind of do the quick math, that would put you at 200 guests. Would you be looking at a budget of $200,000 to $400,000, $500,000? Somewhere in that range is considered a luxury wedding, right? Kind of, and again, like I said, there's gray areas, but
yeah, because if you have,
right.
60 guests, but you're still spending $1,000 to $2,000 a person,
right? Then that's a luxury wedding, right? So, again, these are, there really isn't, there's an industry standard in the sense of what the wedding community and industry kind of categorizes, but it's not a hard, steadfast rule, right? And then the next tier on top of that would be ultra luxury.
So like the Sofia Richie
Yes,
wedding.
the Sofia Richie of the world.
Which we'll talk about later.
Yes, so like Sofia Richie, these are like these are the super luxe weddings that you see, the weddings that, Jose Villa is shooting, and like the celebrity weddings that you see, they are on another caliber that usually is anywhere above $2,500, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per guest, right? So, if you're spending $2, $3, $4 million on 200 people. You do the math of what you are per person.
Makes my heart.
I know, right?
Right.
So keeping that in mind though, like that's really kind of that ultra luxury category, which most people do not fall into. They just don't. And that's okay. It's okay. There are certain planners, like, of course we're all striving. Well, I shouldn't even say that. There's a lot of planners that like their lane and they want to stay, they don't want to do these big, huge, like 5-day crazy installation. They don't want to do all that. Whereas, some of us, like myself that are in the, luxury market, we're always trying to push into ultra luxury. We love the challenge of that. Right.
Yes.
So that's a constant, sort of like goal for, anybody in the luxury market who's trying to level up their business. But that's what we're leveling up to, right? So that kind of gives like the 3, buckets that people, can fall into when they're kind of planning their wedding.
So for today's purposes, we'll talk, when we talk design, we'll just kind of basically focus on the first 2 levels.
Yes.
Because I don't know that Sofia Richie is going to come to Westwind Hills in Missouri and get married.
You never know. She might have like an anniversary party.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
true.
Paris Hilton.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Okay, so you have designed a big wedding here at Westwind Hills.
Yeah.
A beautiful autumn. We'll throw up maybe some pictures in the podcast so people can see. But it was very bohemian in fall, warm tones. Let's just kind of talk about that wedding.
Yes.
So without disclosing the client's floral budgets.
Yes.
I have so many people ask on Instagram all the time, what would I need to spend to do something like that?
Right.
So in the bulk of the decor, in your opinion, the spend, how would you say a breakdown on a
wedding of that scale?
Yes.
Correct. So, when we design, of course, just talking about budgets overall. So we start with, I ask usually it's dad. I'm asking dad for his like fall off the chair number, right? Which is sort of like, what's your freak out number? Because even some of our clients that don't really have what I would call like a traditional budget, I use the word budget very like loosely because I always tell my clients, you have to have at least a 10% buffer on whatever number you give me.
Right.
Because there is going to be something that comes up that you fall in love with or you see on Instagram that you want to add to your wedding. And there's just unexpected things that pop up. You never know. So there has to be like a slush fund. And I also say that you have to be financially prepared that if you had every single person, because you're the most popular person on earth, every single person showed up at your wedding, all 319 people that you invited.
Which doesn't happen often.
It doesn't, but you have to be prepared for a majority of those people to show up because like we can't say, well, we think only 70% are going to show up and then 90% show up, which has happened. And then that's a huge chunk of your budget,
You
right?
need to plan for worst case
scenarios. So when we do that, we obviously budget for food and beverage first, venue, our location, and then basically what's left over once we do some, entertainment, hair and makeup, we're left with what do we have to design with, right? So that can somewhere, sometimes be in the realm of, I would say 30% of the overall budget, which includes rentals, tabletop items. I would even include day of stationery in that category, kind of subcategory of that. Florals, of course, and then overall decor rentals like installations, lighting, sort of that environmental stuff that we're talking about. So that can be upwards of 30 to 40% of the budget. So if you're working on a $150,000 budget, that could easily be $50,000, $60,000 of that budget. I could pull my calculator up, but I think that kind of falls in that range. So, when you're talking about florals, that can be a significant chunk of that decor budget, just because usually our florists are all encompassing. So they show up with not only florals, they have candles, votives, and they have like the stands, the vases, they have some of those installation pieces, like decor pieces sometimes in their inventory. So we always are going to work with, florists that we feel fit the scope and scale of the vision that we have, right?
And I think clients often don't realize that florists kind of do the bulk of the decorating on the wedding day. People think it's, just a bouquet.
Just the centerpieces.
Or just the centerpiece.
Exactly.
It's like they're really doing all the different parts of the wedding.
Right. And of course that usually, fits hand in hand with our decor partners too. So if you have something like a huge altar, piece or something where you have, the florist is going to be the one usually in charge of that. Whereas if you have a, let's say an escort installation of like a huge board that's, 20 feet long and then has frames and cards and, telling the guests where to sit, that would be our decor partner. But then that may have built it custom, but then also adding in the florals on top of it. So it ends up kind of all going hand in hand. But I would say, when you're thinking about, what to budget for that, if you're looking for something at that scale, I would say definitely in the 40 to 50% of like kind of what, and again, that like covers so much more than just florals, but those day of stationery pieces are really important too. That's all the details. And especially the wedding we're talking about had so many details of, the specialty drinks and the specialty, cocktail napkins and bar signs, and everything was very cohesive. So that's all part of the design budget, right? That kind of makes the whole wedding feel cohesive.
Yes, makes sense. So if you had to pick one kind of area to focus on, if someone did have a little bit more of a budget conscious wedding,
absolutely,
with florals, what would be your most important piece?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say to focus on where your photos are going to be taken. I always tell my clients, are you going to hang that photo in your house, right? When we're doing like the family portraits and all of that, it's like, you're not going to hang that picture in your house. So think about that same mentality when you're thinking about where do I want my decor budget to go? Say you have a sweetheart table, and those are going to be those really romantic, dreamy photos of you two laughing during the toast. Those are going to be the ones that are going to end up as your, profile picture on, all of your social media platforms. And those are going to be the ones that you hang in the house. So to me, that's where I would put money. I would put money in what's a great backdrop for us. What's a good floral backdrop for us? Especially same goes for ceremony. So that those key moments where that you're going to have a ton of photos taken of the first kiss and, yes, trust me, do I love florals on a bar and all of those things, but those are not necessarily the ones that are going to make the mantle, right?
Focus the money on the head table, the altar.
Absolutely. The two like key places where you're going to be seen. And then I would say, the rest kind of falls in line behind
Candles,
that. Candles, all of that stuff where those main focal points are going to be. That's the most important place to put your dollars. Okay. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, switching gears from decor, because I know we're trying to keep this on a 20 to 30 minute time.
Yes.
So this is kind of controversial, but how do you feel about kids at wedding receptions?
Oh, yes, it is controversial. Okay, so I always say, I think it depends on, okay, let me back up. It depends on who is the one putting their foot down. If the bride and groom feel very strongly about not having kids at the wedding, and then no one throws up any, red flags to them, like parents or anything, then I say go for it. Don't have kids at the wedding. Because me personally, just on a personal level, I would not have kids at my wedding. I would have kids involved in the ceremony, and then they would leave.
So what do you do? Okay, just to play devil's advocate, because as a parent, and I probably thought differently before I had kids.
Oh, absolutely.
But now, like with destination weddings being a thing, what about the people that are traveling that bring their kids with them?
That's a valid point.
Do you think it's up to the couple to kind of provide connections for babysitters?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I think the onus is on the couple. Especially if you're hosting a destination wedding, if you are asking everyone to fly to Bora Bora for your wedding, then you should provide childcare during the key times of that weekend, right? So the welcome party, the places where you don't want the kids to be there, the welcome party so the adults can like enjoy their time, the reception, and then obviously any sort of like after party. There should be childcare provided, whether it's with a local person, whether you also bring qualified babysitters from here to your destination wedding, whatever you need to do, you need to provide an option for that. And of course, if they decide they want to leave their kids at home, that's okay too, but you have to give the option. Because a lot of times with destination weddings now, people are making a vacation of it. They're saying, okay, great. Like I can come down for the week, but I also think if you are going to have kids invited in general, then you have to have a couple of events that are family friendly. You have to. The kids can't just be sequestered the whole weekend. So you have to include, a brunch, a fun, event in the daytime where all the family can be involved. But, I understand when you're throwing like a black tie wedding at the Ritz-Carlton.
You don't want kids running around. Bumping china and
exactly. So I
understand
that. So it's really more just give the give the options. If there's anybody, especially if the financier, mom and dad, are saying, no, we have to have the kids there, then let's find a solution. I always think that's let's find a solution for, do we have babysitters in a hotel room on site at the hotel? Do we create a lounge, a childcare lounge where they can eat in there? It's like a little separate area. All of those kinds of things I think are really, really good solutions that, keep both parties happy. But it is a very hot button issue with, I would say, most clients. They're usually very strong one way or the other of like, I have to have kids there and everyone's on board, or it's absolutely not. How do I let people know that I don't want their kids there?
Which that's a whole topic in itself.
Exactly. Oh my God. We could do a whole 30 minutes on
Just
that.
hire Maureen and
I'll be sure to tell you. Exactly.
Okay. So before we wrap it up,
yeah,
I do want to touch on Sofia's wedding.
Sophia,
so a lot
the
of
new
times,
it girl.
Yeah. I mean, you see celebrities like, let's just call like Kourtney Kardashian. Okay. I mean,
whose wedding was like, honestly, left a little to be desired.
I know.
In my opinion.
And, very, specific because she's marrying a rock star, and it gave those vibes.
Oh, it did.
For sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But Sophia's was, I would say, very universally
that's why everyone's,
it was beautiful.
Exactly. That's why everyone's
going
freaking
crazy
out about it.
Yes.
Like Kourtney's wedding was very niche.
Yes.
You would have to be, which again, I loved, like I would never have a black and red wedding, but I loved, my little emo heart was like, oh yes, like it's so, I love it.
I was like,
okay.
No, girl.
But I can see where I would never design that for like most clients.
Yes.
You would have to be such a specific client that would like that. Whereas like Sophia's wedding was truly whites and greens and creams and just pretty colors, and everything was very, like you said, universally liked, and she just looked stunning. So I think everyone, just bandwagoned like, she's the new it girl, it looked beautiful, and that's why it's been, covering everyone's For You page for like 3 days. Yeah.
So what is one specific thing from her wedding that you think decor-wise would be really cool incorporated at Westwind Hills that would be doable?
Yes.
Maybe in moderation.
Yeah, I was going to say, because definitely not the ceremony setup. Like ladies, that is not doable. It's not attainable. I want to just be clear.
How much was her ceremony, do you think?
With the florals with everything, florals and like all of the production and the tent, I would guess $500,000 just for the ceremony.
$500,000.
Yeah.
That would
would
be
be
what we're
my
looking at.
like high, like just easy number, round number.
Yeah. I mean, probably $350,000 of florals.
I would say around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, probably at least, I would say $250 in florals, another $100 in production, just like the tent, draping, chandeliers, plus the chairs, the music. I mean, that's not even counting like the music. I mean, they had, the special Steven Sanchez came and like did a special vocal, they had the string quartet. I mean, the whole thing.
Amazing.
It's amazing, but it's like, I just want girls to know, like, you don't have to have Sofia Richie's wedding to have a pretty wedding, but it's good for inspo.
But you could take those things going down the aisle.
Yes.
Were they trays or trees or what were they?
Yeah, they had like tree installs with kind of like draping, like little florals around them.
Yes.
So I would say of anything that I saw there that I thought was the most kind of like, I gasped when I saw it and I was like, wow, that's so beautiful, was their escort installation, which we only saw one picture of that was inside Sofia Richie's like TikTok that she shared. And it was this beautiful sort of like 2 trees that came up with kind of like connections in the middle. So it was just beautiful florals. And then they had all these strings hanging down with like tiny birds and tiny cards that would, indicate where the guests were seated. But it was really beautiful. And they had all this gorgeous lighting and candles. So for me, that's something that is attainable, but was a really stunning centerpiece that, like Paris Hilton took a picture in front of it. It was so pretty, right? So for me, that's something that's attainable where you can create this sort of environment where it kind of creates a wow moment with something that can be easily just a card on a table, we all know, or a board. But if you wanted to, do something that was a little bit higher end that would have that wow moment, something like that would be really pretty. And it was meaningful. Her dad calls her Little Birdie. So it's kind of a cute, I noticed it in the dance floor die cut decal that they did. There was birds around the monogram. So I can assume, we haven't seen pictures of the invitation, but I would assume that monogram was carried throughout some of the other paper pieces. And then of course, I think they incorporated it into the design in the escort, board. I keep saying board, but like installation, so to speak. And then I'm sure it was in some other places too, like maybe the table numbers. And, I'm thinking about what I would do is like, where else would I incorporate that motif, right? And we really, even the Vogue whole article, it was like 90 something photos, but most of it was fashion. There was like not a ton of pictures of what the inside of the reception looked looked like. And I think that's kind of purposeful. They just wanted to keep it pretty private, but maybe eventually, I mean, I follow the planner and things like that. So I've been like creeping around. Banana Split Events, they're over in the UK and they do some huge stuff. So they're really great. I've never met them, but from what I've heard, you know, they're really, really great. And
they must be if they use them.
I know, right? Exactly.
Okay, so is there anything else you think that you'd want to what would be to wrap it up?
Yeah.
What is your one piece of advice? Let's bring it back to the venue. Mm-hmm. As far as giving the best guest experience at Westwind Hills, like what would be something that you should do for your guests at every wedding here?
I think when people come to Westwind Hills, they already know when they come up that they're in for a treat, right? They pull up now your paved area. They come up through, you know, they see this big, gorgeous venue. So I think what's important is just setting the tone from the minute the guests walk in the door. So whether that's with, you know, if you're having your ceremony here, I would always want to have like music already playing. So when people walk up, they feel that emotion of like, oh, we're here for a ceremony. Maybe it's a welcome cocktail, you know, something that feels interactive and hospitable.
Yes.
The number one thing, you know, that I tell my clients is I want your guests to have the best experience at your wedding. Not only do I want you to have a great experience planning the wedding, but our ultimate goal is for the wedding itself, for people, one, to walk in that room and go, this couldn't have been anybody's wedding but yours. That's what we want as designers. But as, you know, just hospitality workers in this industry, we want people to just have a great guest experience. So that starts with, you know, touch points of hospitality. That's somebody greeting when they walk in the door. You know, it's just setting the tone. And you guys are so great at all those touch points. So I really think it's, you know, like with the weddings that we've done here, having those signature drink moments, having an interaction during cocktail hour where people feel that they're able to, you know, have something to do during that time and they get to see how great you guys are at high quality beverage. But then also, you know, relying on our really great catering partners to create a great food experience and, you know, really finding the strengths of our vendors here and, you know, figuring out how they can shine in this venue too. It's not just us, it's also just all of us collectively. And I think thankfully with the weddings I've done here, we've been able to do that. And it's really from all of those touch points, you know, down to, you know, making sure everyone can hear during the toast, like bringing in those extra speakers and making sure the sound is good and making sure people can, you know, the temperature's right and the smell is right and all those things. So, you know, that's, you know, it's hard to say the number one, but I would say, you know, it's kind of an all-in experience, but you guys do a great job of that here. So
and you do as well. Oh, well, and we're excited to have you back at the venue a few times.
I'm excited.
And maybe we'll do a part 2 of this.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, you know, I love a part 2. No.
Thank you so much, Maureen.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We will see you guys next time for our next episode of WedTalks.